Hello and welcome to Blank Plate, a podcast for Swifties with an appetite.
I'm Sara, and I used to be a little kid with glasses and a twin-size bed.
I'm Laura, and I'm a mess, but I'm the mess that you wanted.
And we've got a blank plate, baby, and we'll write your name.
And we have a question for you. Listeners,
are you ready for it? Oh. Are you ready for it? Baby, let the games begin. Let the games begin. Let the games begin now.
Yay, we can finally play Reputation.
Woo! We can play all the songs.
Guilt-free, baby.
Yes, because everything is now Taylor's version. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, emergency pod. Taylor owns all of her music, and we're going to talk about it today. So, we're so excited for her, and we're going to unpack all the details. Sarah's done a deep dive into the whole legacy and story that Taylor's gone through. So,
yeah,
it's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Emergency pod, a lot to say. We are recording this almost a week after the news came out because we're busy gals, and this was the first time we could get to it.
Listen, Sarah's on an IVF journey, and I am at the end of the school year. So although we were absolutely chomping at the bit to record, this is the first time. So, and that sort of summarizes what's on our plates.
I was in Harrisburg for a couple days for work, so I wasn't even home. So it's been crazy. So
nevertheless, there's so much to talk about, even though it's quote unquote old news. Doesn't matter.
Right. A lot to unpack. But yeah, I mean, what's on our plates is right now we're just celebrating.
We're just excited. Happy for our girl. Happy. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like, should we share our finding out journeys?
Yeah.
Why don't you share yours?
Okay. Because I found out first, because it was the Paul Revere who told you.
Yes.
So Friday, May 30th, Taylor announced that she now owns all of her music with a letter that she published on her site. So the way I found out is that I was in my kitchen making my daily yogurt bowl mid-morning, late morning,
Amazing.
I should say.
Yeah.
And I have notifications set up for when Taylor Swift tweets.
Yeah.
I get a notification on my phone, which has not happened in a long time because she kind of stopped tweeting. She was really just using Instagram to do her tour posts and things like that. So I get a Twitter notification, not thinking anything of it, and it says Taylor Swift. And it's just you belong with me, and all these hearts. And I look at it, I'm like, wait a second. Is this a real Taylor Swift notification? Because I used to get notifications for Taylor Swift related things. And I'm like, stop giving me fake notifications. Because I kept looking at them being like, did Taylor tweet? Did she tweet? No.
Yeah.
So I freak out. I'm like, I click on it. It says letter on my site. I go to her site. I see this big letter. I kind of quickly gather that she's bought her music back. Before I even read the letter, I texted the link to 3 different group chats. So I was like, I have to tell people. And then I went and actually read the letter. And I was crying by the time I finished reading it. I was a little bit surprised, but I was really moved by her letter. And of course, it's very well written, which we'll get into.
Of course. Yes.
And then I spent the rest of the day blasting the original versions of her, first 6 albums. And I will say, I was not doing that because I miss them and couldn't wait to go back to the old ones. Some people are like, oh, finally I can play original 1989 again or whatever it is. I was simply doing it out of celebration, being we can now play these. So today I'm going to play them.
Yeah.
Because I had literally deleted them from my library. Whenever a Taylor's version came out, I went in my Apple Music library and I deleted the old ones. Okay?
Yeah.
They were gone. They don't exist. So
I
was blasting the originals. Like, it felt like such a happy day. Like, I said to you guys, like, I was almost as excited as if she had announced a new album. Like, I was shocked
it felt like that.
at it was like it was a holiday. It was a day to celebrate. It was amazing. So then I went with my Swiftie friend Steph here in Allentown. We went to my favorite record store to buy original original version albums of Taylor's. So she bought Reputation and I bought Red, which I was really excited that they had it because I was thinking, I was like, if there's any one I should buy today, it should be Red because that's the album that made me a Swiftie.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to go and buy Red original version. And it was just amazing. Like, I was with my Swiftie friend. You know, we went and bought records. We had pizza. Then Josh and I went and got ice cream that night, which honestly is not that different from a normal day, but I still was like, we're celebrating.
We're celebrating. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just wonderful. I was just through the roof. I was just like flying all day. It was amazing.
Yeah. My experience was very different. So this was, of course, on a Friday. And it's a Friday in May. And teachers, if you know, you know. Fridays are the most chaotic, unhinged energy ever, especially during this time of year. So I found out the news about Tape Pendants Day in the middle of lunch duty when I'm surrounded by 300 middle schoolers in an unstructured setting eating their lunch. And my Apple Watch is just exploding. And keep in mind, my Apple Watch is like relatively new. So like I'm not used to like, I don't know. I'm not used to this level of communication. Like my phone's on me.
Yeah.
Like I'll just like leave my phone in my office during lunch duty. But my Apple Watch was just blowing up. And you had sent the tweet and then you sent the link and I was like, what is happening? I literally did this like I was a spy and I was just like, I'm going to have to look at this later. Like I felt like I was like voice to text being like, what is happening? Somebody fill me in because I can't open this link right now and I don't have time to read a huge thing. And then you told me, you were like, summary, she has all of her music back. And I was like, oh my God. And then I literally went table to table and was just whispering to the girls who I know who are Swifties in the middle school. And I was just like, Taylor owns all her music. Taylor now. And then the first question they first asked me, every single one of them, what about Reputation? And I was like, every single one of them.
Taylor knows us.
I was like, you know what? I haven't read the letter yet because I've been here, but I'm sure she's going to address it. Like, I'm sure she's going to address it. And then you and Rebecca, the text thread we were on, Rebecca was like, you know, I'm like, as much as I can doing this with my Apple Watch. Eventually, I ended up excusing myself to like get my phone and open. And of course, I couldn't read everything, but I was reading everyone's
like
text.
Landscape zoomed in.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was just like, do I have eye problems as soon as I opened up the actual letter that she wrote? Because I was like, I can't read this.
Yeah.
But then, I feel like I became Swiftie Paul Revere of my middle school because like the next classes, I was like, happy Tape Pendants Day to all who celebrate. And on the way home, of course, I had to blast Reputation. I was beyond beyond stoked. And there's always been a level of guilt of listening to Reputation. And I just felt like guilt-free celebration. We're listening to Reputation. It's one of her best albums. And we'll talk about her own thoughts on Reputation later. But like, then I was just like, oh my gosh, I can just like go to Taylor Swift on Spotify and just do whatever I want. Right. And when I read the letter over my lunch, same thing, just was overwhelmed with excitement and just like I've been trying to put myself in her shoes because I've never experienced anything like that. But I'm sure it had to be one of the most monumental things of her life lately, besides the Eras tour. I mean,
totally believe that she has been bursting into random tears of joy.
How could you not?
I mean, would be.
Yeah.
A couple times listening to her music in the car in the last week, I've like gotten emotional, just like listening to Reputation or to the original in 1989 and just like, yeah, just thinking about what she's been through to get to this point and how happy I am for her and how exciting it is. Speaking of listening to Rep Guilt Free, did you see the video that Jack Antonoff posted?
Of course. Just like the best moment between the two of them. It's like so sweet. And I mean, they did that moment on the Eras tour where like they figured out the bridge wording and they just get so stoked. But it was just a new level of happiness. And I love that they hang out all the time. So
I know. And Taylor was holding her cat. And it was definitely recent because Jack had his shaved head, which I guess he did recently.
Yeah.
So
I remember when this happened being like, what's going to happen with her plays on like, you know, the charts after this announcement? Like, is this going to totally reignite a whole like renaissance of old Taylor music? And it did. I mean, you tell me about this by 24 hours later. What went down? Because this is insane.
So I was like really curious. I'm like, I can't wait to see the chart numbers of like what Taylor has done. Okay, so by Saturday, 24 hours after the announcement, all of her studio albums were charting in iTunes in the top 54 spots.
Crazy.
So, and by the way, if you add all of her 6 original albums, plus the ones that came after it, plus the 4 Taylor's versions, she has a total of 15 studio albums. So all 15 of them were in the top 54, which means 27.8% of the top 54 albums on iTunes were by Taylor Swift. And all 6 of her original albums that she just bought back were in the top 15. And the craziest thing to me is that like we had new albums come out on Friday, like Miley Cyrus and I guess Morgan Wallen's album came out on Friday as well. On Saturday, Reputation was the number 1 album on iTunes, and Taylor's debut album was number 2, beating out both of those that were brand new albums. Okay. Speak Now was number 6, 1989 was 7, and Red was 10, and Fearless at 15. Like,
that's crazy.
It's just insane.
And literally, Debut is almost 20 years old. Imagine like a 20-year-old record becoming like the number 2 record within 24 hours of announcing that it's hers again. That's crazy.
Yeah. And like, I was like writing this out and I was like, this makes me emotional again for her. And like, how must Taylor feel? Like, it just in general, the way that we as a fan base have gotten behind her 100% in this fight for her masters. And now, which we'll talk about this, the way she brought us into this and the way we've participated. This is why it feels like a win for all of us. It's not just Taylor. Like, we've been a part of this every step of the way.
I mean, there have been so many like TikToks or whatever, but literally being a part of this is being like the best group project ever. Because it feels like we are contributing to this huge endeavor that someone that we admire has asked us to participate in. And now knowing that the success of the Eras tour basically is the reason that she was able to buy these back. And like Mama was working overtime hours to make it happen. Like Mother was mothering. She was hauling us through the journey and we were all happy to take part, but like it feels like we contributed to that success, you know? And that's what she's so brilliant at. She really does make us feel like we are a part of her story. So
like this win makes me so glad that I bought all 5 of the Tortured Poets Department vinyls.
Yes, it all went to a good point. Yeah.
Now we know why she was hawking that merch so bad, you know?
Now we know why all these merch drops were just out of the blue. Like she was working, honey.
The vinyl variants.
Single mom who works 2 jobs, honey. She was clocking in as much as she can. And literally, I feel like those who are a part of like Swiftie fandom can understand how impactful it is for all of us to be a part of it, because she even says in her letter, which we'll talk about, that she felt like it was too industry specific to like really have people understand or care about her buying back her records. She just thought like none of us would really like it, just wouldn't be something that would matter to us, and how we've really taken it on and it's become something that we are fully in support of. I mean, like, that has got to feel amazing for Taylor. But anyway, there's so many things within that letter to unpack. Let's like table that, because we will discuss all the details of the letter. Can we first do like a chronological rundown of the sale of Taylor's masters? Because this is even something for me. I don't know all the details the way that your book has laid it out. And I'm so excited to learn about this.
Thank God I just finished that book, because it gave me a much better understanding of it. And
what's the name? What's the name of the book? Just so we can link it.
It's called "There's Nothing Like This: The Strategic Genius of Taylor Swift."
I love that you had that off the top of your head. Good job.
It's really good. But then in preparing for this episode, I like double checked some of the timelines. I was checking the book's information. And it is really helpful to really lay out the timeline of exactly how we got to this point and like how it all played out. So this all starts, well, really it starts earlier than this, but November of 2018, that is when Taylor's original contract with Big Machine record label is up. So at that point, she has to make a decision. Is she going to move to a new record label or stick with Big Machine? And apparently she had been trying to work with Scott Borchetta, who was the creator of Big Machine, Taylor's like biggest champion, the one who asked her to sign on to his new record label. He's the one we're talking about in My Tears Ricochet. He's that person. So she had tried to work with him for years.
As I called him, Scott Borchetta. Like horchata.
Horchata. Scott Borchetta.
Yeah.
So Taylor, behind the scenes, had been trying to work with him for years to buy her masters. Like in her letter, I think she says for like 20 years she's been trying to do this. So basically, as soon as she started making music with him, I think she was like, how can I own my masters? And every year being like, can I buy them? What can we do? But they could not come to a deal. And Big Machine was a small label. And at this point, by 2018, Taylor had become like a really huge artist, and her music had also changed from country to pop.
Right.
And the rest of Big Machine was more like smaller country artists. Like Taylor didn't really fit in there. And in addition to the masters dispute, they were experiencing a bit of creative tension. Like she felt that all of her creative choices were being second guessed and that she was really like overthinking her albums. So a new, larger label could be a better fit for her now that she was this like global pop star. And then she could also potentially have more creative control by moving somewhere else.
Right. Because she also has leveraging power, because at this point in 2018, like you said, she's a powerhouse. The next label is going to trust her artistry and not have a strong enough hold on her the way that initially, you know, at 13 years old, you don't know, you know? So.
Yeah. November 2018 is a year after Reputation came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So November 19th of 2018, Taylor announces that she has signed with Republic Records as her new record label, leaving Big Machine and Scott Borchetta. And as part of her statement on Instagram about it, she said, quote, "It's also incredibly exciting to know that I'll own all of my master recordings that I make from now on. It's really important to me to see eye to eye with a label regarding the future of our industry." So she talks about it in that post. She's like, I'm switching record labels and I'm going to own all my music from here on out. And I heard a really good explanation about this deal with, so it's Republic Records, but I guess it's Universal Music Group. They're like one and the same. It's like one owns the other, whatever. It's all the same.
I think so one's an umbrella company over the other one, but I'm not sure which way it goes. Anyway.
So I heard a good explanation about this. Like rather than them owning her music and like doing everything and then paying her royalties of her songs. It's kind of the other way around, where she owns her music and then she pays them to do the distribution and marketing and stuff. So it's
right. So it's more of a risk for her financially, but ultimately she owns everything. Like,
yeah. Yeah. And she's just hiring them as like the large overarching arm that handles like all of that
right.
record label stuff, but she gets full creative control, which is
Right.
what she wants.
They're
So she's
the
like, yeah, I'll pay
machine
you to like
and
distribute and do that stuff.
they're like the engine underneath the surface that like keeps the power and energy going. They have the connections, they have all the resources, and she's the artist, right?
Yeah. And like I've always wondered, like, why didn't Taylor just start her own label at this time? And this kind of makes it make more sense because Taylor would have to create like a crazy infrastructure to
Yeah,
do all this stuff that Universal Music Group does for her.
definitely.
And like I could see her doing that at some point. But like
Yeah.
at this point in time, I could see that like not being worth it for her.
Yeah.
So the other really cool thing about this deal that she made with them is not only did she make sure that she would own her masters, but she also advocated for her fellow artists with this deal.
Mm-hmm.
She said, quote, "There is one condition that meant more to me than any other deal point. As part of my new contract with Universal Music Group, I asked that any sale of their Spotify shares result in a distribution of money to their artists, non-recoupable. They have generously agreed to this at what they believe will be much better terms than paid out previously by other major labels." So what this means is non-recoupable means it acts as a bonus rather than a payout that comes from future earnings that they would make from their music. So, like, you know, if they sell their Spotify shares and give money to artists, they could have said, like, we're giving you this money now, but technically, like, you'll be paying us back with royalties.
Right.
And this is kind of like an advance. Taylor is saying, no, you will just pay them that money. And it's full stop, their money. It's on top of everything else, like a bonus. So that's really cool.
So she was like in there, she's in the boardroom and she's like, this is what I believe in, honey. This is what, if you want me, this is what we're dealing with.
And she did have the leverage at that time to make this happen, which is great. And in her announcement, she also thanked Scott Borchetta from Big Machine, saying, quote, "I want to express my heartfelt thanks to Scott Borchetta for believing in me as a 14-year-old and for guiding me through over a decade of work that I will always be so proud of." So, like...
So they were on good terms.
They were on good terms.
Even though they're departing, it's a mutual breakup at this time.
Yeah. Also, at this time, Universal Music Group was actively pursuing the purchase of Big Machine Records, which means they would have had all of Taylor's music under one roof. But as we know, they did not end up purchasing it. And also, like, Taylor knew when she left Big Machine that Scott was planning to sell the label.
Yeah.
So that was part of her thing, was like, if I stay with this label, he's then going to sell it. And I don't know who that person's going to be, right? So then she would have like even less control, because at least with Scott, they had such a closer relationship. She probably felt better having it in his hands than like somebody else's. So,
and maybe she did have some hope that UMG would purchase Big Red Machine, and then eventually they could come to the table and say, hey, we own all this old stuff. What can I do to buy this back? Maybe it's one record in exchange for an old record. And because I know some artists do that too, where like they'll record a new record with the hopes of buying back their old music so that they own it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's sad to me because we know where this story is going, but like she had trust in Scott that he knew he was going to sell. She knew she was going to sell, but she didn't know who he was going to sell to. And that is where the knife comes into play, right? Like, so effed up.
So here's where things get really dark. All right.
Yeah.
June 30th, 2019. Scott Borchetta sells Big Machine to Scooter Braun's investment company, Ithaca Holdings, for over $300 million. And the deal was also backed by a massive global investment firm called the Carlyle Group. As part of the deal, Borchetta would acquire a monthly interest in Ithaca Holdings and join its board while remaining president and CEO of Big Machine Records. So, as we know, Taylor was not thrilled with this news. Okay.
Yeah.
So that same day, Taylor posts a response to the news on her Tumblr page.
Old
Blast from
school.
the past. Okay.
Yeah.
So she wrote, "For years, I asked, pleaded for a chance to own my work. Instead, I was given an opportunity to sign back up to Big Machine Records and earn one album back at a time, one for every new one I turned in. I walked away because I knew once I signed that contract, Scott Borchetta would sell the label, thereby selling me and my future. I had to make the excruciating choice to leave behind my past. Music I wrote on my bedroom floor and videos I dreamed up and paid for from the money I earned playing in bars, then clubs, then arenas, then stadiums."
Yeah.
From there, she goes on to say how she learned of the sale to Scooter as it was announced to the world and how he had been part of the bullying she had experienced for years, specifically around the whole Kim and Kanye stuff, which we know was a huge deal in her life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She says, quote, "Now Scooter has stripped me of my life's work that I wasn't given an opportunity to buy. Essentially, my musical legacy is about to lie in the hands of someone who tried to dismantle it. This is my worst case scenario. This is what happens when you sign a deal at 15 to someone for whom the term loyalty is clearly just a contractual concept. And when that man says music has value, he means its value is beholden to men who had no part in creating it. When I
Damn,
left my
Taylor.
master's in Scott's hands, I know. When I left my master's in Scott's hands, I made peace with the fact that eventually he would sell them. Never in my worst nightmares did I imagine the buyer would be Scooter. Anytime Scott Borchetta has heard the words Scooter Braun escape my lips, it was when I was either crying or trying not to. He knew what he was doing. They both did. Controlling a woman who didn't want to be associated with them. In perpetuity. That means forever." Okay. So from here, I have to talk about hoax because we talked about hoax in one of our Patreon episodes.
Yes.
And after we released that, I was thinking about the one lyric and I realized that this lyric right here, hold on, this is it.
My twisted knife, my sleepless night, my windless fight, this has frozen my ground.
So the sale to Scooter is the twisted knife because selling her masters to someone else was already like a knife to the heart.
Mm-hmm.
But selling them to Scooter was then twisting that knife and making it even more painful, which sucks.
And it's
It
and
sucks
as
big
she
time.
said, it's a winless fight. Like there's no way that she can win in this situation. It's broken her down. Like literally, she said that the time that anyone has heard anyone speak this man's name, it's escaped her lips. It was when she was either crying or trying not to. Like it's literally broken her down. The fact that this man is now the owner of all of her work. Yeah.
So then she ends the note by saying, quote, "Thankfully, I am now signed to a label that believes I should own anything I create. Thankfully, I left my past in Scott's hands and not my future. And hopefully, young artists or kids with musical dreams will read this and learn about how to better protect themselves in a negotiation. You deserve to own the art you make. I will always be proud of my past work, but for a healthier option, Lover will be out August 23rd. Sad and grossed out." And then a broken heart emoji. Taylor.
Do you know what's absolutely growth and karma is that this letter that Taylor wrote about getting her music back, instead of signing off sad and grossed out, she wrote elated and amazed.
Yeah.
Taylor.
Well, also, like, it's making me emotional again because she says here, like, hopefully young artists or kids with musical dreams will read this and learn about how to protect themselves. And in her letter at the end, she talks about how she has heard many times from other artists who have negotiated to own their work because of this fight that she has been in. So she did what she wanted to do. Not only did she get her master's back, but she made this issue known to the world and known to other young artists who are going to sign contracts at young ages and not fully know what they're getting into. And she's set them up to be better prepared to negotiate for themselves.
Yeah.
It's an amazing legacy, this work that she's done.
I wouldn't be surprised if down the road there is some sort of Taylor executive bill or some sort of like legislation that does protect young artists from this type of behavior. Or I don't know, some kind of like, for example, in the HBO world, there's something called the Bethany Clause, which is by Bethany Frankel, who is the owner of Skinny Girl Margarita. And that basically claims that, like, you know, naming brands that someone is working on, like, that is owned by that person and not by the broadcasting company that is producing the show. Anyway, so I just feel like I would not be surprised if down the road Taylor does have some sort of clause or contingency named after her when people sign contracts at a young age or when they're just beginning their career, no matter what their age is, because of this sort of legacy that she's leaving. I would not be surprised if there's a Taylor Swift clause. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. So continuing this story, that very same day, Scott Borchetta also posts a blog post outlining his side of the story. He says that he texted Taylor the news the night before it broke, and her dad should have known about the deal 5 days earlier. He said it's possible her dad didn't tell her, and also possible that she didn't see his text before the news broke, which is what a representative claimed. But a spokesperson for Swift told People, which we know that Taylor's publicist, Tree Payne, loves to give info to People magazine. So it's probably Tree. Okay.
Yeah.
The spokesperson said that Scott Swift did not know of the deal in advance. The quote was, "Scott Swift is not on the board of directors and has never been. On June 25th, there was a shareholder phone call that Scott Swift did not participate in due to a very strict NDA that bound all shareholders and prohibited any discussion at all without risk of severe penalty." So they're like, no, Scott Swift did not know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope, he was not involved.
In Scott's post, he also outlined the final offer that he gave to Taylor about owning her masters. So Taylor had mentioned in her letter that he offered her to like buy back one album at a time with each album she released. And that would require her to stay with Big Machine, which she ended up not doing. So this final offer had 100% of her assets being transferred to her immediately. And he said they were working together on a new type of deal for the streaming world that was not necessarily tied to albums, but more of a length of time. And I'm like, what does this mean? It sounds like you're still kind of saying the same thing. Like it might not be one album for every album, but he's saying that like her getting them back in some sense would be tied to some kind of output from her. So there's that. And that the book that I read did talk about that. So, but again, that also requires her to stay with Big Machine Records if she wants to buy her masters back in that way, whatever he was offering there, which is kind of big. So, and like I mentioned, Borchetta wanted to sell Big Machine, and it was not nearly as valuable without Taylor and or her masters, right?
Of course, yeah.
Like Taylor's discography accounted for like a bulk of the profits in this company.
Yeah.
Okay.
She is the cash cow in that deal. I mean,
yeah.
Seriously.
So he needed either Taylor herself to continue with the label or her label or her masters being in his hands.
Right.
In order to get good money for this label.
Mm-hmm.
So this final deal he offered was still only good if she remained with Big Machine instead of moving on to a new record label. She couldn't own her masters and leave Big Machine. That was not an option with him. So ultimately, she walked away. And in a text to Scott explaining her decision, she said, quote, "I had a choice whether to bet on my past or to bet on the future. And I think knowing me, you can guess which one I chose."
And I actually want to interject here because when
Mhm.
I saw that in our notes, I was like, that makes this lyric from It's Time to Go so poignant. We didn't pull it as like a sound clip, but I'll read it.
Mhm.
15 years, which we talked about 15-year-olds in her previous comments. 15 million tears begging till my knees bled. I gave it my all. He gave me nothing at all. And then wondered why I left. Now he sits on his throne in his palace of bones, aka her music, praying to his greed. He's got my past frozen behind glass, but I've got me. That is exactly what she's saying. And you can guess which one I chose.
I've always, like, that obviously is about her music, but
100%.
that question, wondering why I left, I always knew that was about her leaving the label. Like, that was never
100%.
about her leaving a man or anything. That is about her leaving Big Machine record label.
Yes. And
Yeah.
she's literally said in one of her earlier quotes, this is what happens when you sign a deal at 15. And 15 years, 15 million. Oh, it's just like so good.
Yeah. Yeah. But they did leave on good terms overall, and she ended that text to him by saying, quote, "I still view you as a partner and friend, and I hope you feel the same. Sending you a hug and my most sincere gratitude." So, like, they did part on good terms initially.
Initially, yeah.
But that twisted knife of him selling it to Scooter, that's where she was like, no, 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 no. No.
Yeah.
No more.
Nope.
Okay.
What's crazy is like these two are such villains in her story, but like I feel like the Scott situation is 10 times deeper of a scar because of him basically betting on her at such a young age and someone who she really did, as she said, she has gratitude towards for that. It's
Yeah.
like kind of figuring out that
Yeah.
your
And
mentor
everyone,
is kind of a crazy, not great person. So
yeah, I mean, it was kind of like a father figure, and like everyone loves to hate on Scooter, and he's an easy target, but Scooter's just a
yeah,
bully, whereas Scott is, yeah, this mentor, family like figure who betrayed her
yeah.
in this deep, wounding way.
Mm-hmm.
It's rough.
Yeah.
So that, when was that? What was the date with all that?
That was
Okay, June
June.
30th
Yeah.
of 2019. So then July 2nd
Only a
of
couple days
2019, a couple
later.
days
Yeah.
later, Taylor's attorney released a statement. This is important, okay? The quote is, "Scott Borchetta never gave Taylor Swift an opportunity to purchase her masters or the label outright with a check in the way he is now apparently doing for others." And
Yeah.
hello, neon
Period.
sign.
Period.
This
Period.
is exactly the
Period.
point. Okay.
Yeah.
And we talked about it at the very end of our last episode, which actually we recorded before all this news broke. But like, that's what I was saying after like finishing that part of the book and everything is people love to say like, oh, Taylor's lying. She totally had a chance to buy her masters and like blah, blah, blah.
She did not.
Not the way other people did. And it's so crazy because Taylor's obviously rich. And if you are selling the masters for a paycheck, take the paycheck from Taylor Swift. Okay? Like, she was
Seriously.
like, I will pay you. I will write you a big fat check today. Just tell me how much. And not
Which is
until
mind-boggling that he would
right.
not do that. What was
Yeah,
he
so
thinking?
every step of the way, like, she was never treated like every other investor. She was never treated
No.
like a person or company or investment company with money.
She was treated like an asset. Like she was a resource and an asset that he could benefit and make money off of.
She was
Not
exploited.
a person. Yeah, she was
And
exploited.
it's crazy too, because it's like, it is her work. This is her art. She put so much of herself into this. And she
It's
is the one
insane.
person
It's insane.
that they won't like just take money from. Like, she's like, please take my money. I worked all these years so I could own my music. Please let me buy it from you, which is kind of crazy that she has to do that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the whole point of this. And again, similar to the Snakegate thing where I was like, did y'all not read exactly what she wrote and like listen to the words coming out of her mouth? Because like she said this back in 2019. She was never given the opportunity to purchase her masters outright with a check in the way other people were. She was not given that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that is the point of all of this. And
period.
Big kudos to her for having the guts to walk away from all of those opportunities. Like, that takes a really strong person for her to say, I want to own my masters, but not like this. I'm not willing to do that.
I'm going to bet on myself, and I have trust that my own success will carry me forward.
Yeah.
And then, wait, I love this quote from August 25th, 2019. She announces on the CBS morning show that she plans on re-recording her old albums. The interviewer, this is like lives in my head. The interviewer's like, is that something you'd be interested in doing? And Taylor's response is, oh yeah. Just like that.
Oh yeah. Also, like, she really did not waste any time because masters were sold June 30th. And this is August 25th that she announces publicly that she's going to re-record her old albums. So that's less than 2 months later. But she's like, I know exactly what I'm going to do.
She's like, oh yeah, that's part of my plan.
Similar
I'm going
to
to do that.
In December of 2019. So December 11th of 2019, she did a Woman of the Decade interview with Billboard. And she said, quote, every week we get a dozen sync requests to use Shake It Off in some advertisement or blank space in some movie trailer, and we say no to every single one of them. And the reason I'm re-recording my music next year is because I do want my music to live on. I do want it to be in movies. I do want it to be in commercials, but I only want that if I own it. And then about the process, she says, it's going to be fun because it'll feel like regaining a freedom and taking back what's mine. Boom.
Period.
And Taylor was allowed to begin re-recording her first 5 albums as of November 1st, 2020. So that would be like a year after all this. And then Reputation, she wasn't allowed to start re-recording until a couple years later. I forget which year she could start. But I guess that makes sense then why Reputation was the one that she like hadn't finished yet.
Yeah, which we'll get to.
I bet at some point in like 2021, she was probably like really on a roll with all of this. And then if she had to wait for Rep, and then she's getting busy with like the Eras tour and stuff, and then trying to get back into that mindset. And then additionally, the challenges that came with re-recording Rep, like she was just like, I don't know what to do.
There's so much to say about that from what her letter like sort of clues us into, which we'll talk about. But I feel like initially she was like, exactly. She said, I'm doing this to regain freedom, and it's going to be fun. And I'm sure it was initially, but there's also like a tinge of sadness to all of it too. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So then we have Shamrock coming into the picture here. November 16th of 2020, which is right after she's allowed to start re-recording her the first 5 albums. Scooter Braun sells Big Machine's catalog to Shamrock Holdings for $405 million. So he probably made about $100 million on the sale, plus like whatever money he made on it in the like year that he owned it. So before he sold it to Shamrock, Taylor once again attempted to purchase her masters, this time from Scooter. But she said his team had asked her to sign an NDA before she could even bid on her own work. Like before she could see any of the financial stuff about it, like before she could do anything related to bidding on her own work.
Yeah.
And she said, my legal team said that this is absolutely not normal. And they've never seen an NDA like this presented unless it was to silence an assault accuser by paying them off. He would never even quote my team a price. These master recordings were not for sale to me. Which is true. Once again.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
Yep.
And to me, like,
and
this
I mean,
is like his biggest.
And we now know that, like, because she was open to this idea, after the deal went through, we learned that Scooter would continue to profit off of that situation, which they didn't say how many years, but it said, quote unquote, many years after that. I'm assuming 5 years now, knowing the timing, because that was November 2020. It's now 2025. But she said Scooter's participation is a non-starter for me, which is like, of course. Yeah, me too. I feel like many years is vague, but 5 years seems appropriate, right? I don't know.
Because like at that point in time, Shamrock was offering a partnership to Taylor, right? So I think they would have kind of owned it together.
Yeah.
And so now I wonder if them actually selling it to Taylor means that the Scooter part is no longer part of the equation because they are no longer the owners of it. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's confusing. We just know that Scooter's participation for her was just like, nope, I'm not coming to the table.
I get it.
Yeah, period.
I get it.
Yeah. I wouldn't either.
Yeah. And this was immediately after Shamrock bought it. And also they told Taylor, like, we would have come to you sooner to like be part of this with us, but we had to sign an NDA and we're not allowed to speak to you about it until after the sale was done. So again, he's like blocking her from this. And of course, like they had just bought it. So it makes more sense at that time for them to offer her a partnership than to like turn around the next day and be like, Taylor, do you want to buy this from us? Like,
right.
This was an investment for them, right?
Yeah.
But she was, even at that time, she was really thankful to Shamrock for how they communicated with her, what they offered her. And she very politely like turned them down and was like, listen, this sounded great, but unfortunately Scooter will profit and that's a non-starter for me. And she also gave them a heads up that she would be moving forward with her re-recording project very soon.
Which is very nice of her to do because initially, I'm sure when they bought that, even though she had said that she was going to do it, with her saying like, no, I'm actually doing this. I'm giving you a heads up because this will decrease technically the amount of money that you just invested into. That's kind of like a really nice business move for her to be like, I'm just giving you a heads up that I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like she wasn't trying to like screw them over.
Have to do that.
But she's like, yeah,
right.
This is what I'm doing. So
yeah.
Moving on, April 9th of 2021, we get the first re-recording released, which is Fearless. And I was thinking like, that is kind of a quick turnaround considering she couldn't start recording until November 1st. So that was 5 months? And she had
Super
to like
quick.
Fully re-record an album plus the vault tracks, including features on it. But it's like, it's not just recording an album, it's recording an album and also matching it to a previous recording, which had to be such a meticulous process. So like, that's crazy. So that was April of 2021. And then November 12th of 2021, we get Red, Taylor's version released. Jump ahead to 2023, we get Speak Now, Taylor's version in July. and 1989, Taylor's version, in October of 2023. So at this point, we're what, a year and a half out from her last re-recording being released at this point in time. So
it's still really quick.
That's what happened in the meantime. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's 4 albums released in 3 years since she was able to start re-recording.
Yeah.
So yeah, our girl, she
She
is efficient.
Yeah, she's so productive. It's an art.
Yes.
Truly.
So true.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to Friday, May 30th, 2025. Taylor announces she bought back her masters from Shamrock Holdings.
Yay.
Yay. And about a week before that, there was a rumor that came out that Scooter was like encouraging Shamrock to sell the masters back to Taylor for somewhere between like 600 million and 1 billion. Which, like, when we saw this rumor, we all were like,
I
okay.
cannot.
Like, first of all, that price is outrageous. Like, that feels like hosing Taylor because we know kind of what they paid for it. Yeah. And it, like, the fact that, like, oh, Scooter Braun's encouraging them. It's like, no, get out of here. And so we don't know exactly what Taylor paid, but sources say it was around 360 million, which is closer to what Scooter paid for them in 2019. Because he paid around 300 and then Shamrock paid around like 400. So somewhere in between there. But then again, we have our source who told People Magazine, aka Tree Pain.
Yeah.
She said, quote, contrary to a previous false report, there was no outside party who encouraged this sale. All rightful credit for this opportunity should go to the partners at Shamrock Capital and Taylor's Nashville-based management team only. Taylor now owns all of her music, and this moment finally happened in spite of Scooter Braun, not because of him.
Yeah.
Tree Pain with the mic drop.
Facts.
Yeah. So what probably happened is, because like one thing we don't know is how long has this sale been percolating? Because these things don't happen overnight.
Right.
So this could have been in the works for the last like 2 months or something.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is true, but people did try to find like the metadata on the photos that Taylor shared on Instagram and on Twitter.
Yeah.
And it was dated back in March. And people were acting like, oh my gosh, like she knew this whole time. I'm like, guys, she's probably been in communication with Shamrock for way longer than that. Like,
yeah.
This isn't just like, oh, she's been lying to us for like 2 months. It's like, this has probably been an ongoing conversation for a very long time. At least that's what I can speculate.
Yeah. I mean, think about what it's like when you buy a house, right? Like, think about all of the paperwork that goes into it.
Exactly.
The various lawyers and different things. So, like, imagine buying a whole music catalog for over $300 million, right?
Right. It's
and
not something that just like, oh,
probably
we had a conversation.
Like
now I own it. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, there were probably also NDAs involved with this where like people were not allowed to speak of the potential of the sale. But then somehow it probably got out to Scooter, and then he planted this story to make himself look kind of good.
Just
obviously
like
backfired.
This man is so obsessed. I can't. Like he's made a comment after the sale too, saying how he's happy for her, and I'm just like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You don't care. I just feel like this whole saga, if you are unaware of like the level of pain that this has caused her, you can hear it in her letter, which I'm going to read in a little bit. But I think the thing that you can take home from this is that this is not something that just happened and Taylor is holding a grudge. This is something that has meant a lot to her for a long time. There have been inner workings and communication that we are totally not aware of, in which Taylor has been offered different things where the fine print and the little NDAs and like all the little the back talk and all these secret sort of things are reasons that she could walk away and saying, no, this is not the way that I want it to go. And ultimately it worked out for the best. So that's that. And I think a lot of people don't fully understand how important this has been for her, but let me read her announcement letter, at least the beginning of it, because it does touch on how long she has been wanting this. So here's Taylor announcement letter. She says, "Hi, period. I'm trying to gather my thoughts into something coherent, but right now my mind is just a slideshow, a flashback sequence of all the times I daydreamed about, wished for, and pined away for a chance to forget to tell you this news. All the time I was this close with 12 eyes, reaching out for it, only for it to fall through. I almost stopped thinking it could ever happen after 20 years of having the carrot dangle and then yanked away. But that's all in the past now. I've been bursting into tears of joy at random intervals ever since I found out that this is really happening. I really get to say these words. All of the music I've ever made now belongs to me. And all my music videos, all the concert films, the album art and photography, the unreleased songs, the memories, the magic, the madness, every single era, my entire life's work." And I mean, can't you just like absolutely love the shout out to "You Belong With Me"? I mean, like, how perfect is that, right? Like, now belongs to me. She even says that like in her Instagram post. So here's that.
You belong with me. You belong with me.
So perfect.
Yeah. Also, the podcast called AP Taylor Swift has a great episode breaking down this letter and specifically the writing of it.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about Taylor's natural conversational tone with her fans. Because really, like, this letter is technically a press release.
Which is like the most conversational press release ever.
Yeah. And poetic and personal.
Yep.
Yeah. But like, and again, but it's not a press release. It's a message to her fans. It's a letter to her fans saying, like, you are the first people to know about this. But also, like, the suspense. It's like a whole paragraph before she actually states what the news is. And you're like, what is it, Taylor? What happened?
Get to the point.
Right. And she also writes about owning her masters in a way that's like kind of romantic. Like, it almost reads like an engagement announcement, like her saying, like, I've pined away for this moment. Like,
yeah,
it's everything I've ever wanted. And that brings me back to our Patreon episode we did about hoax, where we were breaking down this line.
My only one, my smoking gun, my eclipsed sun, this has broken me down.
Like, talking about her only one being her music, which is her real soulmate in life.
Yeah.
It's the real thing that is like most precious to her in the world.
It's the one.
Music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, she's like romantic about it.
100%. I mean, even in the next paragraph, it's like, to say this is my greatest dream come true is actually being pretty reserved about it. Like, this truly has been a fairy tale. This is a fairy tale ending for her. To my fans, you know how important this has been to me. So much that I meticulously re-recorded and released 4 of my albums, calling them Taylor's version. The passionate support you showed me in those albums and the success story you turned the Eras Tour into is why I was able to buy back my music. I can't thank you enough for helping to reunite me with this art that I have dedicated my life to, but have never known until now. It's amazing. Like I said, the best group project I've ever been a part of. Like, I've been the happiest shareholder I've ever been in a business. Like, I'm so happy to be a part of it, Taylor.
Yeah, the re-recordings and the Eras Tour were so important. Like, The tour brought
Yeah.
awareness to her re-recording project and also made her entire discography relevant again, which is crazy.
100%.
And the re-recordings devalued her original masters, which was the whole point, which incentivized Shamrock to sell them to her in the first. But also, like, I saw a post on TikTok saying how all of our clowning was probably helpful.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
she could have used that as leverage to show how feral everyone was for Rep TV and Debut TV. Like, she's like, hello, I haven't even fully recorded this album yet, and look at how they act every single day. Just
Yes.
waiting for this album to be released. And as soon as
Yes.
it happens, my original 6 albums will be devalued even more. Like, soon,
Yeah.
there will be no reason for people to stream those because they won't have my versions.
It's
Yeah.
time to sell. Yeah. If you want to make a profit, it's time to go. It's
Yeah.
so true. And also, like, yeah, the Eras tour, and I remember, like, when people were looking at the amount of shows she was doing, they're like, she's insane. Like, she is absolutely insane. And people were baffled by just the commitment she had to really bringing this around the world for years of her life. And now we know why. There was a sort of secret project that she was working on, which was, I'm trying to buy my music back. I'm trying to have this bucket of money so that when the time comes, I can do that.
This is a fundraiser.
Yeah, this is a fundraiser. This is a GoFundMe. Okay.
Yeah. And how poetic that the Eras tour allowed her to buy back.
I know.
Eras.
It's like, it's a fairy tale. It's a total fairy tale. Yeah. Oh my God.
So anyone who says the re-recordings were pointless does not get it.
No.
Like, they did exactly what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
The whole point was for her to own her work, and it helped. It worked. Her plan worked.
Job done.
Because she's a mastermind. And this whole process that she went through, like, this has been years in the making, right? Like, her turning down all those other deals, her being like, you know what, I'm going to re-record my albums. She released 4 of them. It made me think of this line, which I never really thought about this before, but this section of Mad Woman.
I'm taking my time, 'cause you took everything from me.
Yeah.
Watching you climb over people like me.
Yep.
It's a very, like, vigilante shit moment where she's like, I'm taking my time.
Yeah.
Like, you took everything from me, but I'm taking my time and I will get what I deserve.
Yeah.
I'm not rushing this process. It's going to happen exactly the way that it needs to.
It also reminds me of the line that I talked about from It's Time to Go, Palace of Bones, because, like, he's doing this to other people too. So, yeah, it's crazy. So, other things that she mentioned in this letter is, all I've wanted was the opportunity to work hard enough to be able to one day purchase my music outright with no strings attached, no partnership, with full autonomy, which we talked about earlier with the partnership thing. I will forever be grateful to everyone at Shamrock Capital for being the first people to ever offer this to me. Finally. The way that they've handled every interaction we've had has been honest, fair, and respectful. This was a business deal to them, but I really felt like they saw it for what it was to me. My memories and my sweat and my handwriting and my decades of dreams. I am endlessly thankful. My first tattoo might just be a huge shamrock in the middle of my forehead, which is hilarious because, like, that just sounds like Taylor. But, like, we talked about that with Scooter wanting to do the NDA, and then initially they offered a partnership with her because she ethically, like, didn't want to take because she knew Scooter would profit from it. She probably also doesn't just want a partnership. She wants to own it. Like she said, strings attached. And it sounds like they've had a good relationship since they bought from Scooter from this letter, right?
Yeah.
Like
she's never had beef with Shamrock.
Yeah.
It seems.
Well, I mean, especially now.
Especially now.
She said, I'm extremely heartened by the conversations this saga has reunited within my industry among artists and fans. Every time a new artist tells me they negotiated to own their master recordings in their own record contract because of this fight, I'm reminded of how important it was for all of this to happen. See, that's what I mean. I do think there's going to eventually be some sort of clause or something that it'll be like a Swift clause or something like that. Thank you for being curious about something that used to be thought of as a too industry-centric for a broader discussion. You'll never know how much it means to me that you cared. Every single bit of it counted and ended us up here. Thanks to you and your goodwill, teamwork, and encouragement, the best things that have ever been mine are finally actually are. Elated and amazed, Taylor. So our girl...
And again, she references her own song here by saying the best things that have ever been mine finally actually are, because this is from her song called Mine.
You are the best thing that's ever been mine.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, this paragraph here is what like fully made me cry through the first time I read it. And then later that day, I read it again, like on my computer screen. And again, it was that paragraph that made me cry.
Yeah.
Because there is something really special about this is not just Taylor getting her master's back.
Yeah.
It has had a huge impact on the industry. And like we've talked about, like we played a part in this.
Yeah.
Because Taylor was open enough with us as her fans to bring us into this from day one.
Yep.
And she has brought us along every step of the way. We were personally invested in this.
We were fighting along with her, you know, like
we were in the trenches.
Yes.
Okay?
The Great War. Like we are there.
Yeah.
Fighting in only your army. Okay.
Seriously. And I also love that she's honoring all of that good that did come out of this fight, which made me think of this line from Invisible String.
Hell was the journey, but it brought me heaven.
Absolutely.
Because this whole saga was incredibly painful for her.
Yep.
But a lot of good came out of it. Like the general public would not have known about how record deals work in this way if she hadn't brought her fight to the public. And I also think like it's a very large example of something that Taylor has gotten crap for in the past, which is like, I hate this phrase, but playing the victim, where there have been many instances where Taylor publicly acknowledges that something has not gone her way or something that she feels has been unfair to her. And if she had not continued to do that, like she easily could have kept this fight behind closed doors.
We wouldn't have even known.
We actually did not know for years that she was trying to do this. It wasn't until she left Big Machine and then Big Machine was sold that she was like, hey guys, I've been trying to buy my masters. I tried. I technically couldn't. And now it's been sold. Like, and she's just like, I have to tell you guys what's going on here. Right. Yeah. And like Taylor, I swear, there's got to be something in her star chart about this. Like the worst things that happen to Taylor work out for her in the end. There's something about karma for her.
Yeah.
Like, for real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seriously.
Yeah. And I feel like she knows this because she kind of talks about it in Thank You, Amy.
But when I count the scars, there's a moment of truth that there wouldn't be this if there hadn't been you.
So true. I feel like also, do you feel like the manuscript is also kind of more poignant too? Because like the story isn't mine anymore. Like going through this whole process, maybe even she knew down the road, like I'm coming to the end of this process and kind of reflecting on that as well. Even deeper than what we understood initially about her reflecting on it. We have an episode on the manuscript. Feel free to listen to it. But like now knowing that potentially that she was already in conversation with Shamrock, that reflecting on what this whole experience really was to her just like hits deeper, right? Okay, and we do have to talk about the next paragraph. Okay, so like all the like happy feels leading up to this, the happy tears, same thing. I was like in my feels.
We technically skipped this part and read the whole rest of the letter. But we're going to address now the part about the last two recordings that we didn't get.
So let's first talk about reputation. So in her letter, she says, I know. What about Rep TV? Full transparency. I haven't even recorded a quarter of it. The Reputation album was so specific to that time in my life, and I kept hitting a stopping point when I tried to remake it. All that defiance, that longing to be understood while feeling purposely misunderstood, that desperate hope, that shame-born snarl and mischief. Miss Girl. First of all, she says, I know. What about Rep TV? That is the first question every single person asked me when I was telling them.
Well, and it actually literally kills me that she calls it Rep TV.
I know, because we call it Rep TV.
We call it Rep TV. Like, no, like, and even like any other time, Taylor uses like the legal given name.
Of course.
Of like, 1989, Taylor's version.
Yeah.
Red, Taylor's version. Speak
Rep
Now,
TV.
Taylor's version. Rep TV is the fan's name for it. And I love that she used it because it's so funny to me.
And like
she knows about how crazy we are.
She knows how much we've been clowning. She's obviously like not an idiot. Like to me, she like, this is her acknowledging how cuckoo bananas she knows that we are, because she knows when we all read this, we're gonna be like, yay, Taylor, I'm so happy for her. But what about Rep TV? If she didn't include this paragraph, that's all we would be talking about.
Which, like, that is probably the first thought that popped into my head. It was like, wait, if she owns it now, then, like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
what
what's
happens
now? What happens next? Right.
What do we do?
Yeah. So I feel, first of all, calling her Rep TV is hilarious. But it's also sad, right? Like she says, transparently, I've only recorded like a quarter of it. Which,
wait, when you first read that, did you read it as I've only recorded about a quarter of it, or I've recorded all but a quarter of it?
I haven't even re-recorded a quarter of it, meaning she's probably recorded like 4 songs.
Yeah.
Like,
but I originally read that to mean, because in my mind, I'm assuming has it done. So her saying,
no,
there's a quarter of it that I haven't even re-recorded. I thought that she had 75% of it done. And then everyone else was saying, and I was like, oh my God, has she only done like 2 or 3 songs?
She's probably done like 4 songs. And hitting, quote unquote, hitting a stopping point really made me like think for a second what this must have been like for her throughout the re-record process, to recreate something that she considers to be perfect, because she literally says, to be perfectly honest, it's the one album in those first 6 that I thought couldn't be improved upon by redoing it. Not the music or photos or videos. So I kept putting it off, which is iconic considering her quote from Miss Americana, where she's on the phone after she gets snubbed at the Grammys for Reputation not being a winner or not even be nominated. She said, I just need to make a better album. And then later she's like, actually, to be perfectly honest, this is a perfect album. There's nothing to improve upon. That's growth. And we all agree, Taylor. So 100%.
Yeah.
But also like putting yourself in that perspective of being like, I don't want to re-record this. This is perfect. There is nothing that can be improved upon. There's no sort of like Easter eggy sort of thing. I look back, it's like, oh, I wish I would have done that. Also, let's not lie, this is also an album about falling in love with her most recent ex-boyfriend. And also one of the darkest times of her career. Do you really want to put yourself back into that headspace? That's kind of that's a very like traumatic time for Taylor. So I feel like I can understand exactly why going to the recording studio, this is not a fun experience necessarily for her, especially this album specifically.
It's like a lot of the songs on Rep really do have a lot of like personality to them. Like there's little things like, think about This Is Why We
I
Can't
know,
Have
like
Nice
the
Things,
laugh,
right?
Yeah,
like it would be hard to recreate that emotion in the studio. So I think that like in general, we know that the time that she was recording this was a very dark time for her. So you had to go back to that headspace. But also I checked, Reputation has 15 tracks. 1/4 of 15 is 3.75.
Okay.
So we know she's done Look What You Made Me Do. And I think we know she's done Delicate.
Yeah.
So those might be the only two, maybe one more, which would bring her to 3. But maximum 3 tracks have been recorded.
I think, too, if people are like, oh, well, she sang it every night on the Eras tour, I feel like there's just a different energy of, like, performing these songs, like, the, like, kind of, like, different embodiment that she has to go into.
Yeah.
That is acting. It's, like, method acting to be
Yeah.
Reputation in Taylor's world. Completely different than Fearless. Completely different than Folklore. It's honestly putting on a different character for her. But stepping into the recording studio to actually sing those words again and to be honest and to bring out all those, like, details like you mentioned, that is an entirely different beast. So
she'd have to be, like, performing as Reputation Taylor for, like, an entire day in the studio for, like, days on end.
Yeah.
Which would be exhausting.
100%.
Also, I just have to say, as a Karma truther, that I take this part that she wrote about Reputation to be further proof that karma is real.
100%.
Because her saying, like, the Reputation album was so specific to that time in my life.
Yeah.
Like we talked about our previous episode with our Taylor Roman Empires about the timing of it and how Reputation is clearly about what happened at 16. Like, to me, this is proof of that.
Oh, yeah. And also she said things like, all the things, my music videos, the photos, the, like, everything that she has, all that, including karma, which is amazing.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah. Also, she says, quote, there will be a time, if you're into that idea, for the unreleased vault tracks from that album to hatch. So read between the lines, we're going to get vault tracks. But she did not say anything about, like, I don't know. We're going to get, like, vault tracks from this time. And I love the word hatch because, like an egg, like a snake egg. I don't know.
Like a snake egg.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that she said that because honestly, like, that's what we really care about.
Yeah, true.
Like, we don't need Reputation to be re-recorded, but of course we want the vault tracks.
Yeah, give us the vault tracks, girl. Yeah.
Please.
Yes.
Which, like, hopefully they're recorded at this point.
I don't know. It maybe the originals that were scrapped. I don't know, but I feel like it's a different thing. It's a different thing to re-record a vault track that was it's a draft of a project.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then when you're like on the tour
like
singing it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and she doesn't have to, like, make it match a previous recording that we've heard.
She can make it whatever she
wants. Doesn't have to be, like, point perfect. Yeah. So that would be, I would think, much easier to record.
Yeah.
But I wonder if she, like, records vault tracks if she's only recorded, like, 2 songs from the original album. Like, I don't know.
I'm thinking, like, she owns it.
How the timing works.
She could have completely finished songs that just didn't make it on the record that she could say, here it is.
Yeah.
You know?
I honestly didn't think about that. I've just, like, this whole time I've been picturing the vault track being ones that she did as part of what would have been Rep TV. I guess I also picture these vault tracks to be more like demo recordings. But I guess, like, she could definitely have, like, fully polished these vault tracks, but then she spends time deciding what the final album track listing will be.
Yep.
And maybe you have to, like, record it in full and then get it all laid out there, like, on your table and decide what gets cut and what stays.
Yeah. I mean, the artistic process is different for every album, but, like, eventually you're going to have to make cuts and you have to think about the cohesive sound of an album. And if there's just like one or two that just don't quite make it, but they could be completely done.
Yeah.
But she's pretty generous about her vault tracks. I mean, like, how many did she give us for Red? My goodness. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. What's funny too is that she says, I've already completely re-recorded my entire debut album and I really love how it sounds now. So debut instead of self-titled is amazing because we call it debut.
Yeah. And previously Taylor, I think, has always referred to it as self-titled.
Yeah.
So again, her calling it debut, it's the same as, like, Rep TV.
Yep.
So her saying my entire debut album.
Yep.
Again, like, this is a letter to her fans. She knows us.
Yep.
She knows what we're saying and what we care about. And I just feel like it's like, I don't know. It just feels like a little gift to be like, I see you.
Yeah.
I know what you
I
want.
am
You know?
clocking you. Yep.
Yeah.
Also, I love this is like kind of summarizing how we felt the day leaving our lives and just like listening to Taylor's music. Those two
Yeah.
albums can still have their moment to reemerge when the time is right. If that would be something you guys would be excited about. Girl, please.
Taylor.
Please.
You know.
Okay. But if it happens, it won't be from a place of sadness and longing for what I wish I could have. It will just be a celebration now. Period.
Yes. Amen.
Period. But it also made me so sad because, like, we have been so excited for the era to launch, for each era to be like, yay, we get to listen to it. But we kind of haven't been recognizing that perhaps this is something that is not fun for Taylor. This might be something that
Yeah.
every time she's like, yeah, I'm going to do it, but it's not because I want to do it. Maybe she doesn't want to spend all her time recording old music. Maybe she wants to be making new music, but this is a project she has to do. You know, like I feel like there's just a gravity to this and like kind of a acknowledgement that it hasn't been all fun for her.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's like most things, something that is many things at once, where I can imagine her being in the studio, re-recording these tracks, doing this creative process and feeling like empowered and like I'm taking my power back. I'm going to own my music. I'm re-recording it. I'm having fun in the studio with the people I'm working with. It's kind of interesting to like relive this, but then maybe like later that night she's at home and you have a moment where you're kind of emo and you're like, man, but it also like really sucks that I have to do this. Like, I wish I could have just owned my
yeah,
music. Like, why do I have to go through all these
right.
hoops to own my stuff? Like, this is messed up.
Yeah.
So it's like you can be both of those things at the same time. And I'm sure she was like every single day, both of those things.
100%.
But I do think that our enthusiasm for the project and the way we embraced it, like she said, like, didn't 1989 TV debut with better
Yeah.
numbers than the original 1989? Like, that's insane.
That is insane. Because
It
that's
was
like the album. Yeah.
It's like majority an album that everyone has already heard before.
Yeah. And we're like
It's
so
not like,
stoked.
oh, the vault tracks did great. It's like, no, like we were buying the vinyls,
Yep.
we were buying these CDs. Like we went all out.
Mhm.
We were like, yeah, we're here for it.
Yeah.
1,000%. So that had to make her feel good.
100%.
Obviously.
And I do think that I think we, at least in my brain, I think we all thought that Reputation was going to come next and then it was going to be Debut. So we were clowning so hard and had no clue. And like, what about the timeline for this? Ultimately, I just feel like now we just throw our hands up and say whatever she wants it to be. Like, I feel like, you know, for a long time we would talk about this like cutoff date for trademarks and stuff like that. And I feel like now we're just like, whenever she wants, debu's done. So I'm assuming she'll probably drop Debut whenever. And I do think the theory of it being the 20th anniversary is great.
Yeah, like next year, October 24th of 2026, which is a Friday, would be its 20th anniversary. So I could see her releasing it and calling it 20th anniversary edition. Because my other question is like, Debut, we know she's going to release in full. Will she call it Taylor's version? Because she doesn't have to anymore. They're all Taylor's versions.
Maybe.
You know?
I think.
And I could see that being a way to kind of like change the narrative of it. Like she's saying this is just a celebration now. Like calling it a 20th anniversary edition instead of Taylor's version.
Yeah.
Is acknowledgement of the fact that like she doesn't have to do that anymore.
I kind of see that folding out. I don't know if she'll use Taylor's version anymore. I don't know. But like it was recorded under the idea of Taylor's version. So I have no idea.
Yeah. And then for these rep vault tracks, like, is she going to do the vault tracks as like a separate EP? Or is it going to be like Reputation Deluxe?
Yeah.
With the vault tracks added?
I see
and then she'll do like vinyls with like the whole thing or something.
Knowing that she's probably not going to re-record the rest of Reputation, I kind of just seeing it being called like Reputation, like From the Vault or something like that.
Like an EP.
Yeah, because like originally it was like, oh, she'll do Reputation Deluxe because we never got that. But I don't see her recording. Like,
no, but I mean like taking the original Reputation tracks and then adding the vault tracks, and that would be deluxe. But I could also see her releasing them as something separate, because if she has enough of them, if it could be basically a full-length album, it could get nominated for awards.
That's true. And we know that she'd be down for that. So maybe it will be its own thing.
I mean, I think that'd be kind of cool to let them have their own spotlight.
What are the rules?
I mean,
what are the rules for that?
I don't know, because I also don't know if like she could have maybe submitted her Taylor's versions to like the Grammys and stuff. I'm not sure if she was allowed to or not, and just maybe chose not to.
I don't know either. That's an interesting question that we should look into.
Yeah, because I know like All Too Well 10-minute version was nominated for some things, but that's a single song that was new.
Right. But
versus an album.
Right.
So I don't know. It also like all of this really depends on whatever she has planned for TS12.
100%.
Because like what if she's planning for that to come out this fall? Then like where is all this other stuff going to fall so it doesn't detract from that moment?
Also, what does it mean for Karma? If there is a lost album, she can drop that whenever she wishes if it's already recorded. Mm-hmm. Or if she wants to add to it, she can certainly do that. But I love that, like, in her press statement or in her letter, she says unreleased songs, which means that there are, like, versions. There are concert versions. There are acoustic versions. There are vault type of songs that just sort of got cut. Yeah. That they are all heard. We could absolutely get all the things that we wished for, but perhaps a record company was just withholding. For example, like we've always wanted 1989 tour versions of, you know, all the things.
Give it
like
to me.
all the things. Like all the rock covers. Like she could totally just make that if she wanted. That's the thing though. There's so much red tape and like fine print in becoming an artist that's signed under a record label that we don't understand.
Yeah.
But now that she owns it, she can literally just say, I'm doing this. Here you go.
Yeah. And I also I pray to the Taylor gods that because we helped her do this, that she will want to give us these things.
I think she will. I mean, she's already said a celebration.
You know what I would love is a Taylor Swift advent calendar of music.
That would be amazing. Swiftmas, Swiftmas.
It's Swiftmas. Okay, either the 13 days of December leading up to her birthday, or if she does the full thing leading up to Christmas, because we know she loves Christmas. If she's every day, I will release something from my vault that you have not had on streaming yet.
I just also had a moment. Wait. We know that we know she's had a film crew following her backstage, potentially for a documentary.
Right.
If that is actually happening, we may actually see in that documentary her having these conversations. And
I'm sure we will.
Oh my God.
And imagine the way we got the video in Miss Americana of her getting the phone call from Tree about Reputation not getting any nominations, and her saying, I just have to make a better album, which now she agrees is perfect. Yeah. Imagine us getting footage of her getting the call that the deal has been finalized.
I will be sad. If there is a documentary, this has to be a part of the whole thing.
There has to be a documentary. It needs to be a 13-part Netflix series.
I hope.
This is not a 2-hour situation.
No.
Give me everything.
I want a whole season.
All of it.
Give me a whole season.
Whole season. Yeah. We're going to watch all of it.
100%. I'd study it like a book. Seriously. Yeah. I mean, this whole announcement seems so random to be May 30th. It just seemed out of nowhere. It's not a 13. It's nothing like that. But it does make you wonder, because this happened only a few days after the AMAs. Was this something that she was initially going to announce at the AMAs? Because there were so many 26s. The clues were cluing. All my albums, all masters acquired is AMAs. There are these clues that perhaps she initially planned on making this announcement to everyone there and then changed her mind, which we've talked about in previous episodes.
Yeah.
Also,
glad she did.
In this letter, not to be a clown, but she does use 12s.
Clown it up.
Yeah.
Clown it up.
She used I 12 times. And there's a new logo at the top of the letter, which is very like Art Deco 1920s Gatsby coded, which made me immediately think of Florence's Gatsby, an American Myth musical that she's working on, which, by the way, is not to be confused with The Great Gatsby that's on Broadway right now, which I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. That musical sucks. Okay? That musical sucks. Okay? Hot take. That musical was written by AI. I am excited for Florence's rendition of The Great Gatsby because I think she really will pay good homage to it. And I'm excited for what she cooks up because we love Florence. But
it will be interesting.
Perhaps she will play a role in that, meaning she could actually be acting in it, or she could be part of the production, or
part of the
songwriting. I don't know. So it made me think of Gatsby, and it also made me think of like the Bejeweled music videos, like Elevator, even like some of the styling with like Dita Von Teese. It was very like, you know.
Well, and also with like the paparazzi photos we've gotten recently of Taylor being out and about. She's been wearing a lot of diamonds in her jewelry. Like specifically, there's an earring that has like a waterfall of diamonds, and those have 12 on each earring again. And she's worn those several times recently. And like the night she was out with Selena Gomez, she was wearing like this black outfit that had like sparkly edges.
Very nice flapper vibes. And it does make me think, like, is this going to be a glitter gel pen party record? Like not.
We also had a glitter background behind the letter on her site.
And it's like not 1920. It might be like, okay. So she mentions the 20s in this from the one.
Roaring 20s, tossing pennies in the pool.
Roaring 20s referring to 1920s, but also like we were in our 20s potentially. And then this is, I can't believe we can play this from Reputation.
Feeling so Gatsby for that whole year.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people on TikTok and stuff have been talking about this. I think it would be really cool if she was doing like a 1920s inspired era for like TS12. Also, like, how crazy would it be if it was like a jazz inspired album?
That would be nuts.
I would lose my mind. Like, I can only imagine what she could do with that. But also, I saw someone made a really good point that like the Tortured Poets Department aesthetic with like the psych ward, and if you think about the music video for Fortnite where she's like wearing the like Victorian dress and stuff, that was like late 1800s to early 1900s. So then having the next era be like going into like the Roaring 20s and like flapper dresses and sparkles and
opulence.
Oh my God, like what if she cuts her hair into the like flapper bob?
Girl can rock a bob, we know that. So
yeah,
I don't know, it's fun.
Yeah, and then also like, why is there a second page behind the letter?
Yeah, I don't know if that was a graphic decision or if it was a clue.
Probably.
But I do, going back to the 1920s of it all, like we kind of recession indicator, we need good pop music. Like we need good party music. Bring it back. Like recession indicator, we need a pop hit. Like please.
I'm also really excited for like whatever song she's going to now write about buying her masters, because we have several songs about her talking about the pain of this process. So like she's going to write songs that reference her buying it and what that feels like and how happy she is. Like, what are those songs going to be?
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
I mean, it just makes me excited for the documentary because the saga is like come full circle. We get our happily ever after. And at some point, there's going to be a documentary where hopefully we see everything starting from the very beginning, like all the stuff.
I hope so.
I mean,
she has to do a documentary about this.
100%.
Yeah. If she doesn't, someone else will.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've already had a couple, like there's one that's like, it's like Swift versus Scooter or something like that. But we know we need our girl's point of view. How can she not be documenting this time of her life? Like literally, seriously, like probably the most pinnacle part of her career right now is this re-record project. And how it worked out. Like insane. Okay, so this whole thing as a food. This whole thing as a food. Okay, for me, it's champagne. Okay, no recipe. Yeah. We're just popping champagne. We're throwing our hands in the air for a toast because she did it. Yeah. So that's it for me.
Champagne pool.
Yes. Right? Champagne sea.
Yeah. So I actually looked for a champagne cake, but then I was like, this doesn't feel like festive enough, even though it is a champagne cake. I was like, no. And then I was thinking about the Milk Bar birthday cake. Classic. Because we know Taylor loves that. Like, but I was like, no, it's technically a birthday cake. Like, that's not right. So in looking for that, I did find the bakery, Magnolia Bakery, which Taylor's also probably a huge fan of. They have a confetti cake that seems very festive. Like the picture of it they have, it has like a light pink buttercream and there's like sprinkles around the outside. So I was like, that feels like the cake that Taylor should order or make or whatever.
100%.
And I did find a recipe for a confetti layer cake from Sally's Baking Addiction. So we will link to that as well.
Amazing.
But yeah, we're celebrating. We're having confetti cake and champagne.
Yes. Toast to our girl.
All day.
That's right.
So excited.
Well, emergency pod concluded. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled analysis soon. But we had to make a special episode for this because it's very important. So
very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congrats to all of us, honestly.
Yeah. Great job on the group project, everybody. We did it.
We did it.
We did it, Joe.
We did it, Joe.
We did it, Joe. Oh, no, actually, change the name. We did it. We did it, Travis.
Yep. Yeah, or we did it, Jack.
We did it, Jack.
We did it.
Yes, we did it, Jack. We did it. Oh, my God.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, thank you guys all for joining us. And if you'd like to support the pod and see what we're up to, make sure you're giving us a follow on social medias. We're on TikTok and Instagram at Blank Plate Pod. And check us out on YouTube and make sure you're following us there as well.
Yeah, and you can check out our website at blankplatepodcast.com. And you can send us an email at blankplatepod@gmail.com. And then you can also leave us a voicemail or text us to celebrate. Let us know what you did at 717-382-8313.
And if you're enchanted by what we're doing here, support us on Patreon, which is linked in our show notes.
And until next time, we had the time of our lives with you.
And you know, it's time to go.
So bye.
Bye.